If you die today, no one will be able to save your brother, and the opportunity to become the successor of the Addams family will be mine." Melinda wasn't afraid of revealing her true intentions to Steven. After all, dead men told no tales. The Addams family was anything but ordinary. Anyone could become the successor as long as they were competent and had the required qualifications. The two sons of the Addams family were Steven and his older brother who had leukemia. If Steven died, his brother would soon follow, and the seat for the successor would be empty. There were few people who were capable enough to rise to the top in the family, so Melinda had a high chance of winning. If she got rid of Steven, she could return to Washington, D.C. and inform the family that Alaric had disobeyed her and push all the blame onto him. "It's a perfect plan, but unfortunately, the person dying here today won't be me," Steven said. Alaric growled a second sentence. "1 minute is all I need." Melinda shrugged and picked up a glass of wine from the table, preparing to celebrate her victory. Alaric slowly made his way towards Steven. The wooden floorboards were indented with every step he took. When he was 1 foot away from Steven, he swung his fist at lightning speed. Lucas, who had witnessed Alaric's punches before, knew that this was the end for Steven. But the scene didn't play out as it had all those other times. Steven didn't move to dodge. He stood in place and grabbed Alaric's arm, stopping him mid-punch. Alaric couldn't wrestle free from his ironclad grip. The corners of Steven's mouth curved upward as he flung Alaric across the room. Steven looked like he was taking a casual stroll around a park when he encountered a wild bear charging at him. To defend himself, he grabbed it by the scruff and tossed it aside like it was nothing more than a tiny pest. Steven grabbed Alaric by the collar and lifted him up with one hand, slamming him against the wall. Melinda and Lucas watched with wide eyes as Alaric was pushed further and further into the wall, a mere few seconds away from being crushed alive. Lucas was so scared that his entire body was trembling. Alaric was frightened enough, but who would have thought that he would be helpless in front of Steven? Flynn's eyes shone with excitement. Was this the strength that Steven had used to turn a losing battle into a victory all those years ago? Melinda dropped her wine glass and took her legs off the table. When Garrett returned to the family, he had been seriously injured. He told them that Steven had killed his subordinate, Jacob, with only one flick of his wrist. The family concluded that Steven's martial arts strength had reached a higher level than they'd anticipated. The Addams family valued strength above everything else, regardless of the members' statuses in the family or how many rules they had broken. As long as they were able to reach a level of strength that would be deemed satisfactory by the family, they would be held in high regard. Despite everything that had happened in the past, it wasn't impossible for Steven to become the successor. This was precisely the reason why the Addams family had sent Melinda after Steven. They wanted her to test his true strength. After taking care of Alaric, Steven turned to Melinda. "It's your turn." Melinda panicked a little as Steven walked up to her. A murderous glint flashed in his eyes. She hadn't expected him to have become this strong. He'd killed Alaric in one move. Melinda's brain was working overdrive as she tried to come up with a reasonable excuse to get out of this. She stood up and clapped. "Steven, congratulations on passing the family's test. I instructed Alaric to attack you under the family's orders." Steven narrowed his eyes. "What examination?" Good. She'd caught his interest. She had to continue acting. "You should already know that the strength of each member of the family is assessed once a year. The results of the examination determine their position in the family. It doesn't matter how low you ranked previously. As long as you have the strength, you'll hold a higher position in the family and enjoy more privileges. Alaric's strength has reached the AAA ranks, and the family assumed that yours was one tier lower, at least AA rank. But from what I saw just now, I believe your current strength has reached S rank. So I'll be taking you back and reporting this information to the family." Steven gave Melinda an unimpressed look. "I'll go back, but not now." What a joke. As the Grand Palace Master, why would he care about an inconsequential family like the Addams family? If he really did return, it certainly wouldn't be as a candidate for the successor position. He would be returning as the Grand Palace Master. But it wasn't the right time for that. He couldn't return now. Not like this. Aunt Melinda, I didn't realize you were such a talented actress. If I didn't know who you were and what kind of person you are, I would have been touched by your so-called sincerity. Unfortunately, I'm no longer the person I used to be. So today, you will meet your end, just like Alaric. Back then, Melinda had been the most active of the assassins that had been sent after him. She was persistent and unrelenting, chasing him for thousands of miles. Needless to say, he'd suffered a lot because of her. He'd even almost died. Melinda burst out laughing. You want to kill me? It won't be that easy. You may have killed Alaric with one move, but you don't have what it takes to do the same to me. I'm your aunt, and I'm sure you're aware that I reached S rank a long time ago. Melinda reached behind her back and pulled out 2 scimitars. She leapt into the air and raised her weapons, heading straight for Steven. Watch out! Flynn shouted in alarm. Steven jumped back and avoided Melinda's attack. She pulled her weapons out of the floor and threw a kick. This time, Steven didn't dodge. He reached out with blinding speed and grabbed her ankle. With a crack, the sound of shattering bones echoed in the room. Melinda cried out and dropped to the floor. Her weapons lay next to her. Steven looked down at her in disappointment. A warrior with an S-rank combat strength? Is this all you've got? Melinda raised her head in shock. His strength alone was putting him among the SSS ranks. Steven turned his attention to Lucas, who was cowering in the corner. Now it's time to take care of you. How do you think we should settle this? Lucas was scared out of his mind. Even Melinda wasn't a match for Steven. He knelt in front of him and pleaded. Mr. Addams, please spare me. I'm willing to give up the Klein Group. Klein Group? Steven grinned. 6 years ago, you were a nobody in the Santa Ana's business industry. But because you pledged your allegiance to the Addams family, they supported your endeavors. After I was kicked out of the family, you made your move and took over the business that I established in Santa Ana and changed the name to the Klein Group. You held the city's economic lifeline in your hands, and your net worth soared. You're the previous owner? Lucas exclaimed. Before Steven was abandoned by the Addams family, they had 2 top talents. Steven was one of them, and the other was his older brother. They were both competent and evenly matched, and so the family sent them out to test their abilities. They would both make a place for themselves outside of the family without their support. Whoever achieved the most would become the favored successor. Steven went to Santa Ana and relied on his outstanding business sense to establish his own company. In the span of 1 short year, his business became one of the leading enterprises in the city, ranking first in terms of GDP. His reputation spread far and wide. The Addams family was no exception. The news reached Washington, D.C., but just as Steven was at his peak, a few words from a stranger ruined his life and got him kicked out of the family. Afterward, Lucas oversaw the merger and acquisition of Steven's business with his own and changed the name to Klein Group. It followed the laws, and the public didn't suspect anything. They only regarded Lucas as a rising upstart. Recently, through an investigation conducted by the palace, Steven discovered that the Addams family was behind the merger. They helped Lucas persecute the higher-ups, who were still loyal to the previous owner and took control of the company. Yes, 6 years ago, I lost something of mine in this city. And now, I'll be taking it back, Steven said. Lucas surrendered immediately. I'll return the company to you. You're the owner of Klein Group, and you may change the name as you wish. With the assistance of his legal advisor, it didn't take long for Lucas to fill out and submit the paperwork necessary for a change of ownership in the company. Despite all else, Lucas was Santa Ana's economic lifeline, so it came as no surprise that he was resourceful. While it would typically take around 10 days to half a month to complete these procedures, Lucas only needed around 10 minutes. From this moment onwards, the Klein group that controlled Santa Ana's economy would become Steven's, who was the rightful owner.
Lucas, don't misunderstand, Steven said. Even though Klein Group is worth tens of billions, to me, it's only pocket money. I'm just taking back what belongs to me. After I leave, you can contact Jack Stein if you need anything. Are you referring to Jack Stein, one of the richest people on the East Coast? Is there another Jack Stein as famous as he is? Mr. Adams, may I ask how you know him? He's one of my subordinates.
Steven's indifferent reply left Lucas at a loss for words. Jack Stein possessed wealth that was worth hundreds of billions, and he was even considered a distinguished guest to someone with authority at the national level. But he was only a subordinate to Steven. But that would mean that Steven was actually... Lucas scrapped the thought. He was not in a position to know his identity. When Lucas merged his own company with Steven's, he didn't do anything illegal. The most he ever did was order his employees around. So Steven decided to leave him be. To be able to integrate the Klein Group into Santa Ana's economy and emerge as a top enterprise in the city while maintaining its ranking for so many years, Lucas could be considered a prodigy in the business industry. It wasn't convenient for Steven to show his face, so he went to find one of the 4 great generals, Dennis Lucero, to replace Lucas as the CEO and carry out the operations of the Klein Group. As someone who lived his life on the battlefield, Dennis said he couldn't do it.
Mr. Adams, I would gladly accept if you wanted me to fight, but I don't have a talent for running a company.
Steven patted Dennis on the shoulder.
You just need to play the part. I'll be the one making the decisions. Don't worry about the business side of things.
Okay, if you say so, I'll do my best, Dennis said.
The next day, Lucas and Dennis, on behalf of Steven, held a press conference and officially announced that Lucas would be resigning from his position, and Dennis Lucero would become the new CEO of Klein Group. Lucas was a bundle of nerves, and he had only relaxed after the press conference was over. Last night, he'd contacted Jack because he wanted to verify Steven's words. Jack had told him that half of the world's wealth and influence belonged to Steven. That was all Lucas needed to confirm his identity. The palace was a legendary organization, and Steven was the Grand Palace Master. The sudden news of Klein Group's acquisition by Dennis Lucero stirred up the masses. The city wondered who this mysterious Mr. Lucero was. He had seemingly appeared out of thin air and taken control of Santa Ana's economy. After the press conference, Steven and Dennis headed to the CEO's office at the Klein Group. Steven sat on the couch and held up a list of the company's upper management staff. Max, director of the technology department. Brendan, department head. Joyce, director of the sales department. Sam, logistics director. These names were familiar. I didn't expect the talents I scouted back then would become the Klein Group's higher-ups. Looks like Lucas is quite capable. He was the richest man in Santa Ana for a reason. Steven continued to flip through the list, but he didn't see the names of the core personnel of his company back then. People like Noah and Richard, who were the backbone of the technology department of his company back then, seemed to have disappeared without a trace. Dennis was sitting behind the CEO's desk in the same chair that Lucas had sat in just yesterday. Being a CEO wasn't his forte.
Mr. Adams, what are you planning to do? Leave the staff alone for now. I'll go look for Noah, Richard, and the others. By the way, we have a meeting with the upper management 3 days from now. Dennis, you're the CEO, so you should go meet with your employees. Mom, Kim, I'm back,
Steven called out as he opened the door to Riverview Villa.
I have good news. Lucas retired, and the Klein Group has a new CEO. We don't have to worry about him from now on.
Kim and Natalie looked at him from the living room. The TV was on, and the Klein's group's press conference was being aired.
We already know that,
Natalie said, gesturing to the TV.
I don't know what you do out there all day long. If it weren't for Dennis Lucero, who knows what could have happened to us? I went out to solve the problem.
Oh, please, don't tell me you were the one who told Dennis to purchase the Klein Group.
Yeah, I asked Dennis to become the new CEO.
Natalie turned her attention back to the TV.
Forget it. You're not capable of doing something like that.
Steven didn't argue with her. In any case, there were no more outside distractions. Kim could focus on Eastern Sea Group's 5-star hotel project in peace. Kim didn't show it, but she was curious about Dennis. She had a feeling that he and Steven were acquainted.
Kim, I have a few friends in Santa Ana who I haven't seen in a while, Steven said. I have nothing to do in the afternoon, so I'm planning on heading over and hanging out with them.
Okay, have fun. Steven left the house and decided to look for Noah first. Even though both Richard and Noah worked in the technology department 6 years ago, he could only find Noah using the Klein Group's resources. He couldn't find any information on Richard. In the past, Noah's position in the company was only second to Richard's. But in the present, Noah was in dire need of money. He ran a grocery store in one of the poorer neighborhoods in Santa Ana, and business was not going well. Steven couldn't figure it out. Back then, Noah had received an annual salary of several million. Even if he resigned from the company, he should have still had quite a bit of savings. And so, Steven decided to look into it himself. When he got out of the cab, he saw Noah sitting in front of the grocery store's counter. 6 years ago, Noah had been in the prime of his youth and had a positive outlook on the future. But there was no trace of that optimism now. Noah was in his 40s. His hair was gray, and his face was haggard. Steven almost didn't recognize him at first glance.
Noah?
He called out. His voice was tinged with uncertainty. Noah turned and recognized him with one look. He was surprised to see him.
Mr. Adams, is that you?
Noah was thrilled to see his old boss again. He brought out a stool and invited Steven to take a seat. Steven sat down and looked around. The wallpaper, furniture, and floorboards were all faded and aged. A woman came out of one of the back rooms. She was wearing heavy makeup and was dressed extravagantly. She seemed out of place in this dusty old grocery store. The woman peered outside.
Noah, are you here yet?
Noah frowned.
Mary, can't you see that Mr. Adams came to visit us? Do you only care about that adulterous man of yours?
After some thought, Steven recognized her. Mary used to be one of his company's employees. At that time, she and Noah had been in a relationship, but she was fired because she kept every man she came across at work using her appearance. After the company let Mary go, Noah was still deeply in love with her, and he ended up marrying her later down the line. Mary looked at Steven in disdain.
Don't be so harsh, Noah. Did you forget? Mr. Adams was the one who tried to break us apart. If it weren't for his bankruptcy back then, would you have been able to marry a beautiful woman like me? Oh, right. I heard that he went to Los Angeles after he went bankrupt and became the son-in-law of the Cassidy family. He freeloads off his wife and fools around every day. So what's the matter, Mr. Adams? Did you come here to complain to Noah? Or maybe you're here to borrow money from us.
Noah looked like he was on the verge of losing it.
Can't you be polite for once?
Mary ignored him.
I'm telling you right now, if you came to borrow money, you can forget about it. Noah's assets are with me, and I'm in charge of them.
From Mary's haughty attitude and her fancy outfit, Steven understood why Noah was so short on cash. Pulled up in front of the grocery store and honked several times. The car door opened, and a man in a suit stepped out. Steven recognized him. His name was Max, and he used to be one of the lower-ranking employees at his company. But now he was one of the higher-ups of the Klein Group. Max was the director of the technology department. Mary sauntered over to the car with a smile.
Max, you're finally here. Where are we going today?
Max pretended like he didn't see Noah and brazenly wrapped his arm around Mary's shoulder. Mary leaned into his chest.
You're so dirty-minded.
Noah could only helplessly watch the two of them flirt right in front of him. Steven stood up.
Max, don't you think you're going too far? Noah is Mary's husband. Why are you acting like he doesn't exist and flirting with her in front of so many people?
Max finally noticed Steven's presence. Mr. Adams, it's been years since we last saw each other. How have you been? His tone was polite, but Steven noticed the underlying ridicule.
Yes, it has been a while, and it seems like your personality is only getting worse as time goes on.
Max laughed and gave Mary a hug. Personality is worth nothing, and Mary was the one who sought me out. She came to me herself, so why would I refuse? Compared to Noah. Noah lowered his head in shame. There was nothing he could say to defend himself.
Noah, why don't you just get a divorce?
Steven asked. Mary was amused by his ridiculous suggestion.
Divorce? No way. Besides, he wouldn't dare divorce me. If I leave him, he'll have nothing left.
Noah heaved a sigh.
Mary, what's wrong with you? You already have his money. Why can't you just let him go? Are you doing this on purpose?
Mary wrapped her arm around Max's waist. Yeah, I'm doing this to torture him. Max chuckled.
Noah, I'm taking Mary out to eat, and I'll give her the life and happiness that she wants. Since you're not capable of... I'll do it for you. Speaking of which, you should thank me for going out of my way.
Max shifted his gaze to Steven.
It must be fate that we're all meeting again after all this time. I'm meeting up with Brendan, Joyce, and Sam tonight. Why don't you join us so we can reminisce about the good old days?
Max, Brendan, Joyce, and Sam were all talented people that Steven had high hopes for. 6 years ago, Steven had planned training for them to prepare them for a promotion. But before he had the chance to oversee their training and promote them, he was kicked out of the Addams family. It had been 6 years since they'd last gathered. Max had become an entirely different person, and Steven was curious as to what the others were like.
Okay, I'll be there, he said. King's Hotel, private room 501. See you later.
Max opened the car door for Mary and drove off. When they were on the highway, Mary turned away from the window.
If you let me divorce Noah, we could live together. Not yet. Richard and Noah have the technology that I need. No one else knows where it is. Richard's whereabouts are unknown, and only Noah knows about it now. Without that technology, my position as the director of the technology department is at risk. Also, Dennis took over the Klein Group so suddenly. He has to be an extremely wealthy person to manage such a feat. If I get my hands on that technology and give it to Dennis as a gift, he might give me a promotion as a reward. When I have a firm footing in the company, you'll divorce Noah, and we'll get married. Isn't that a good idea?
Max's flowery words strung Mary along.
You've thought that far ahead? I'm so happy. But Noah does nothing but sigh in front of the store every single day. He's like a dead man. I can't get through to him.
Max focused on the road to hide a smirk.
That's why you have to speed things up.
At the grocery store, Noah sat back down behind the counter.
Mr. Adams, I'm sorry for letting you down. Noah, listen to me. Get a divorce and cut ties with her. I would if I could, but she has all my assets in her hands. If I divorce her, I'll have to live on the streets.
When Noah and Mary were engaged, he loved her so much that he let her write down her name whenever they purchased a car, house, or other valuables. What surprised Steven the most was that before their marriage, they'd even signed an agreement, which stated that if Noah suggested a divorce, all of his assets would belong to Mary. Whether she had an affair or not didn't matter. He would be penniless if he divorced her. Steven finally understood why Noah was stuck in this neighborhood and living an aimless life.
It'll be fine. So what if you sign that agreement? As long as I'm here, I won't let you starve to death. I'm back now, and I've even taken back my company. I hope we can work together as we did 6 years ago. I've learned from my mistakes, and this time, I won't let what happened back then happen again.
Noah suddenly looked 10 years younger. His expression was radiant.
Mr. Adams, are you going to make a comeback? I heard a mysterious rich man named Dennis Lucero acquired the Klein Group this morning. Could it be? Yes, that was my handiwork. I want to take back everything I lost in the past. Will you help me?
Noah nodded vigorously.
Of course, Mr. Adams.
This was probably the best news he had heard in the past 6 years.
I've been meaning to ask, do you know how Richard's doing? I wanted to ask him to come back to the company. If he agrees, we three can work together again.
Noah's face fell at the mention of Richard. Steven's intuition told him that something must have happened that he wasn't aware of.
What's wrong?
Noah sighed.
Fate knows how to make a fool out of a man. After you disappeared 6 years ago, the company didn't have a leader. It was chaotic, and everyone wanted the technology in Richard's possession. On the surface, those people pretended like they wouldn't do anything to him. But one day, Richard showed up at the rooftop of our company's building and jumped. I don't know the details, but according to the news, he ended his life out of guilt. What was he guilty of? They say the people who ran the Klein Group discovered that Richard was embezzling large amounts of public funds and used it to threaten him into handing over the technology, but he chose to end his life instead.
Steven shook his head.
That's a lie.
He personally kept tabs on his company's accounts. Even if Richard wanted to, it would have been impossible for him to embezzle money without him knowing. Moreover, Richard wasn't that kind of person.
I'll make sure to conduct a thorough investigation into what happened back then, Steven said. All right. Oh, I almost forgot. Are you really going to attend the gathering tonight with Max? Of course. I personally scouted them back then. Since they're meeting up tonight, I have to go. Are you sure? I have a feeling they're up to no good. Don't worry about it. I'm actually curious as to what they have in store for me.
The King's Hotel was the most luxurious hotel in Santa Ana. It was only second to the Eastern Sea Group's 5-star hotel that was under construction. It was also an ideal place for gatherings of the upper class. Booking private room 501 costs over $10,000. It was already evening. Several people dressed in suits and blazers greeted each other and headed for room 501. Brendan, it's only been a few days since we last met. You're in high spirits again. Hey, Joyce, I heard you were interested in Brendan. Who told you that? No need to be ashamed. You two are a perfect fit. Sam, why do you have such a nasty mouth? Brendan, Joyce, and Sam bickered with each other as they took their seats. Joyce looked around. Where's Max? Why isn't he here yet? Sam started teasing her again. Several handsome guys are sitting right in front of you. You didn't even look at us for more than a minute before asking for Max. While they were engrossed in their conversation, the door opened, and Max entered the room. Hey, you're finally here. Everyone applauded. Why is it just you? Joyce asked. Where's Mary? Max looked disgusted. Do you really think she's qualified to join our gathering? Sam gave him a thumbs up. Max flashed a cryptic smile. I invited someone else today. I bet none of you can guess who he is. His words piqued everyone's interest. Who is it? Joyce asked expectantly. Don't keep us guessing. Tell us already, Brendan urged. Max leaned forward. Don't be too surprised, but I invited Steven Adams. Joyce, Brendan, and Sam exchanged a glance. That was unexpected. Didn't Steven disappear 6 years ago? No one knows what happened to him, Joyce said. They say he messed with the wrong person and he went bankrupt. Then he ran away to Los Angeles and married into the Cassidy family. He's nothing but a... I heard something similar, Brendan said. Oh, Steven. Back then, he made me attend some kind of workshop, and I was forced to do the most tedious work for only $3,000 a month. I was worse than you, Max said. I was almost promoted to a management position, but Steven said my resume was lacking. He wanted me to learn under someone for a year.
Fortunately, when the Klein Group merged with our old company, they promoted me and gave me a raise.
Sam and Max's grievances made Joyce and Brendan recall their own frustrations with Steven. "Hey, do you know where Dennis is from?" Joyce asked. "It's like he acquired the Klein Group overnight. There was no prior notice or anything. He can't be an ordinary person." "Maybe he's from the East Coast or one of those wealthy families in Washington, D.C. Either way, I don't think we have to worry. Even though our boss has changed, with our capabilities, we'll be able to get on Dennis's good side in no time. I've also asked Mary to speed things up and get Noah to tell her where the technology is as soon as possible. Once I give that to Dennis, he'll definitely think of me as his trusted aide. When my position is solidified, you will all continue to live a good life with me." Everyone was relieved upon hearing this. "Max, you've really thought this through," Brendan praised. Everyone nodded in agreement. "When's Steven coming?" "I can't wait to see how he's doing now that he's fallen to the bottom," Brendan said. "Is he too scared to come?" Joyce wondered out loud. Max reached for his phone. "I'll ask around for his number." Before he could do anything, the door opened and Steven walked in. Compared to 6 years ago, when he dressed in suits tailored by top-class designers, he was now wearing a casual shirt, sky blue jeans, and sneakers that looked like they were sold on the street. His outfit was worth at most $500. Steven's appearance was enough for them to understand his current living situation. Max stood up. "Is this really the same Mr. Adams we all knew back then? Welcome," he said sarcastically. Brendan sized him up. "It really is you, Mr. Adams." He took out 3 bottles of wine and put them on the table. Steven could tell that it was the strong stuff. When Brendan was met with no response, he gestured to the bottles. "This is something like a tradition whenever we gather. Whoever's late has to drink 3 times before we continue. You've decided to join us today, so you're following our rules, right?" Max, Joyce, and Sam were eager to see how Steven would embarrass himself. They hated him to the bone. If it weren't for him, they would have risen to even higher positions by now. "Sure, I'll drink. It's only 3 bottles," Steven said. A young woman, who had been sitting on the side, came forward in concern.
"Mr. Adams, let me pour a glass for you."
Brendan stopped her and glared. "What are you doing? This tradition is meant to be entertaining. It's no fun if he drinks from a glass. He'll be drinking from the bottle."
"But he won't be able to handle all that," the girl protested.
"Anakah, shut up," Joyce scolded. Anakah had no choice but to return to her seat. Steven looked at her thoughtfully before picking up one of the bottles. "Mr. Adams, you have quite a high alcohol tolerance." Max applauded Steven as a sense of satisfaction filled him. Steven used to be lofty and miles above him, but not anymore. The others followed suit. One of the bottles was emptied in no time. Steven picked up the second bottle and swallowed. In less than a minute, the wine was gone. Steven was calm and composed. His mind seemed clear, and there were no signs of him coming close to being drunk. Everyone was stunned. How high was his alcohol tolerance? Under their astonished gazes, Steven proceeded to down the 3rd bottle in one breath. His face wasn't flushed in the slightest as he put the empty bottle on the table. Everyone looked at each other. Max had originally planned for Steven to make a fool out of himself after drinking a bottle of strong wine, but what he and the others didn't know was that not even 100 bottles could make him drunk. As the Grand Palace Master, possessing this kind of skill wasn't worth mentioning. "I'm done. Can I sit down now?" Steven asked. Yes, of course. Even though Max's plan had failed, he still had other tricks up his sleeve. "Mr. Adams, I heard that for the past few years you've been working menial jobs in Los Angeles as the son of the Cassidy family." "Yes, I have." "Compared to being the CEO of your own company, I think that suits you better." Max raised his glass of wine. "I'd like to congratulate you for becoming a Let me toast you." Before Steven could say anything, Max tilted the glass above him. Wine spilled down Steven's face and onto his clothes. Max motioned for the others to join him.
"All of you, come and give Mr. Adams a toast."
Brendan, Joyce, and Sam didn't hesitate to flip their wine glasses above Steven, leaving him completely drenched. Max laughed.
"You never thought this day would come, did you? If you didn't make me go through that training back then, I would have snagged a position much higher than the director of the technology department. Fortunately, you disappeared out of the blue one day, and your company merged with the Klein Group. Thanks to that, we four were spared years of suffering."
Steven had been wondering about the reason behind their actions, and he finally understood that they were blaming him for the training he'd set up for them 6 years ago. That training wouldn't have lasted several years as they thought. It would have only lasted at most a few months, which was enough time for them to gain the necessary experience for promotion. But it seemed like none of them had learned anything from it. They were even thinking that he'd looked down on them and purposefully put them through tedious and useless training on purpose. Steven had misjudged them. If they had taken their training seriously, perhaps they would have reached an even higher position by now. The potential he saw in them 6 years ago had vanished. The current them wasn't worth nurturing.
"Today is truly a great day," Max said smugly. "Does anyone else want to remember this moment forever?"
"Yes," the others answered in unison.
"All right."
Max pointed at Anakah.
"You, record this. I want to post it online so that everyone can see how one of the past top 10 young entrepreneurs in Santa Ana is doing now."
Anakah shook her head.
"I can't do that."
Joyce sighed. "Why are you so ignorant? My cousin recommended you, so that's why I brought you to tonight's gathering. If you don't please the higher-ups, you won't be able to come to work tomorrow."
"Joyce,
Never mind. I'll record it myself. Move aside." Joyce pushed Anakah away and took out her phone. Anakah stood to the side. She didn't know what to do as she watched these so-called higher-ups make fun of Steven.
"Can I come to work tomorrow?" she asked quietly.
"What do you think?" Joyce snapped. Steven stayed seated during the entire process. He could have retaliated at any time, but he didn't, because he wanted to find out how much these people hated him and how far they were willing to go. These four used to be the future of his company, and they were expected to be the future of the Klein Group, but neither of them deserved their positions. The meeting with the upper management would be held 3 days later. It wasn't suitable for people like Max, Brendan, Joyce, and Sam to stay at the company. At the end of the gathering, when Steven left the hotel, he saw Anakah crying by the side of the road. He held out a handkerchief. Anakah accepted it and wiped her tears.
"Thank you. Today is the end of my 1-month probation period at the Klein Group. I would have become a full-time employee tomorrow if tonight didn't happen."
It was a well-known fact that the Klein Group controlled Santa Ana's economy. Every white-collar worker in the city dreamed of achieving a position in the Klein Group. And the higher the position, the higher the salary.
"Do you regret it?"
Steven asked.
"No, what they were doing was wrong." "Okay, come to work, as usual, tomorrow, Anakah."
Even though Steven was disappointed in Max, Brendan, Joyce, and Sam, Anakah's courage to go against her higher-ups had caught his attention. She was more of an asset to the company than the four of them.
"I've already been fired," Anakah said helplessly. "Who told you that? Trust me, just pretend like tonight didn't happen. There will be a surprise when you come to work tomorrow."
Anakah didn't know why, but the confidence behind Steven's words made her want to trust him, even though tonight was their first meeting.
"Okay, I'll be there."
When Steven returned to Riverview Villa, Natalie was dusting the counters. She turned and waved the feather duster in his face.
"You're always causing trouble for us, especially Kim."
"Mom, calm down," Kim called out from where she was sitting on the couch. Steven stepped to the side, avoiding a mouthful of feathers as he spoke.
"What happened, Mom?" "You're asking me when you're the one messing around outside. See for yourself."
Natalie picked up Kim's phone and showed him the video on the screen. It was a video of him being humiliated by Max and the others. Steven realized they'd sent the video to Kim. Kim is the vice president of Haynes Industries and the Cassidy Group. Her reputation is important. But you, on the other hand, barely had an image to maintain in the first place. You idle around all day long. There's nothing you have to do, but you still manage to ruin your non-existent reputation. If word gets out, Kim's position will be at stake. Don't worry, Mom. They won't be able to do this for much longer, Steven said. On the way back, he'd informed Dennis that the upper management's meeting, which was scheduled to take place 3 days later, would be held tomorrow at a last-minute's notice. Max and the others would receive their punishment tomorrow. Natalie put her hands on her hips. I'm telling you now, if you don't take care of this, you and Kim have to get a divorce. All right, but everything will be settled tomorrow, Steven promised. Steven, are you okay? I know it's been hard on you these days, Kim said. Even though everyone thought that he had nothing to do all day, she had a feeling that he had his own affairs to deal with. She didn't know what it was, but she believed that he would tell her when the time was right. Rather than being concerned about her own reputation, she was more worried about Steven after watching that video. Steven gave her a smile. I'm fine. Your words are comforting enough for me. The next day, the Klein Group's building, which was located at the center of the city, was bustling with traffic. The Klein Group was the backbone of Santa Ana's economy, and it was no secret that the upper management received a generous salary. Today was the first meeting that Dennis would hold with the upper management staff after becoming the new CEO of the Klein Group. The upper management was eager to meet with their mysterious new boss. His impression of them would determine their future position in the company. Max, Brendan, Joyce, and Sam were one of the first to arrive. Shortly before 8 o'clock, all of the upper management staff were gathered in the conference room. Dennis was the only one missing. Everyone had started to gossip about their new boss all at once. I heard Dennis is from a wealthy family in the East Coast. That's how he was able to buy the Klein Group overnight. A boss like Dennis would value competent employees the most, like the director of the technology department, Max. He's a core member of the Klein Group, and I bet Dennis will hold him in high regard. You're too kind, Max said. Don't forget about Joyce, the director of the sales department. She achieved billions of transactions on her own. Dennis will be relying on her a lot. I was only able to take care of hundreds of millions of orders and win the trust of the customers because of how well our products are made, Joyce added. Brendan, the department head, ensures that all products are of high quality. Brendan chuckled. You flatter me. In my opinion, logistics is imperative to a company like ours. I believe Dennis will think highly of Sam, our company's logistics director. A round of compliments ensued. The four of them were filled with pride as they listened to the rest of the staff praise their achievements. Dennis has probably taken notice of you guys already. That's why he was so impatient and pushed up the date of the meeting. He couldn't wait to meet with you all. While the upper management staff were engaged in a heated discussion, pulled up in front of the Klein Group's building, Dennis and Steven had arrived.
These clothes are so stuffy. I'm never getting used to this,
Dennis complained as he got out of the car. You'll get used to it eventually, Steven replied with a smile. They entered the building and saw Anakah waiting for them. She was surprised to see Steven with Dennis. Anakah realized why Steven had been so confident last night when he told her to come to work today. He was acquainted with their new boss. On closer inspection, Dennis was handsome, but Steven wasn't too bad either. Anakah found herself admiring their good looks as they walked over. Anakah, come with me, Steven said. We'll head up to the office to make preparations before attending the meeting. Dennis went ahead to the conference room on the top floor. The executives heard the sound of footsteps outside the room and fell silent. They were anticipating their meeting with their new boss. Dennis, who was dressed in a designer suit, opened the door and attracted everyone's attention. He walked to the front of the room and scanned the crowd.
Nice to meet you all. I'm Dennis Lucero, and I'm the new CEO of the Klein Group."
The conference room was filled with warm applause.
"Mr. Lucero, welcome to the Klein Group,"
Max said. With him taking the lead, everyone else followed. Dennis smiled and held up a hand. The applause died down.
"I did acquire the Klein Group, and I am the CEO, but I'm not the owner. I'm like everyone else in this room. I'm just an employee. The only difference is that I'm in a higher position. Like all of you, I also have my own boss."
Everyone was shocked by this news. There were rumors that Dennis was wealthy, and for him to have his own boss to answer to meant that there was someone powerful behind the scenes.
"The owner of the Klein Group would like to personally meet with all of you. He's already here, and he's preparing for the meeting."
Dennis glanced at his watch, which, along with his expensive designer suit, was from Steven for today's meeting.
"It's about time. He should be here any minute."
As if on cue, the door opened, and everyone turned to look. They were anticipating the real face behind the Klein Group. But to everyone's surprise, it was Anakah who came into the room.
"Anakah, what are you doing here?"
Joyce chided. "Do you know what kind of place this is?
It's not for probationary employees.
Also, I told you not to come in today. Why are you here?"
"You're delaying our meeting with Mr. Lucero. Can you take responsibility for wasting our precious time?"
Steven's voice sounded from the hallway.
"Is there a need to be so rude and disrespectful to your colleague?"
Max frowned when Steven followed Anakah into the room.
"Steven, you must be in the wrong place." "6 years ago, maybe this place was yours," Brendan said. "But now it belongs to Mr. Lucero."
Joyce crossed her arms.
"Exactly. Don't tell me you came here because you heard we were going to have a meeting and you wanted to ask Mr. Lucero for a position. You're not doing as well as you were back then, and everyone sympathizes with you. But this isn't a place you can just enter. If you waited downstairs and spoke with a little more respect, we might have considered asking Mr. Lucero to give you a position." "Thank you so much for your kindness," Steven said sarcastically. He looked at Dennis. "Mr. Lucero, it seems like I'm not welcome."
Dennis chuckled as he walked off the stage.
"Who wouldn't welcome you? Everyone, I'd like to formally introduce the owner of the Klein Group, Mr. Steven Adams."
"What?" Everyone was astonished, especially Max, Brendan, Joyce, and Sam. They looked at Steven in horror. Never in their wildest dreams had they imagined that he was the owner of the Klein Group. To be able to acquire the Klein Group overnight without any advance notice was not an ordinary achievement. In other words, Steven was no longer the same person he used to be. In fact, he was even more powerful than 6 years ago. Last night, the 4 of them humiliated Steven and even recorded a video that they sent to his wife. Steven was disappointed as he scanned their faces.
"Why are you so scared? Max, Brendan, Joyce, and Sam, you 4 are the pillars of the Klein Group."
Steven's words weren't patronizing, but the 4 of them felt the immense weight behind them. They scurried out of their seats and lowered their heads in front of him.
"Mr. Adams, we're very sorry. We were blind." "I don't think so. Your eyes were very clear and bright. How else could you have become the core of the company after the merger 6 years ago? It's human nature to avoid the river and find a shortcut to the top of the mountain. I should respect the decisions you made back then. Was it gratifying to pour wine on me last night?"
The executives who had tried their best to flatter the 4 of them before the meeting began turning their backs and drawing a clear line between them. They even reprimanded them. "Are you crazy? How dare you pour wine on Mr. Adams? This is unforgivable. In my opinion, they deserve to be punished." Steven snapped his fingers.
"Today, I'll return the favor. From today onwards, Max, Brendan, Joyce, and Sam are released from all of their responsibilities at the Klein Group. Don't show your faces here ever again."
The 4 of them didn't question Steven. Their positions were as different as day and night, even more so than 6 years ago. They hurried out of the room and left the building. Neither of them dared to ask Steven for their salary.
Steven made arrangements for the staff to clean up the conference room. The meeting was put on hold for 15 minutes. When the meeting resumed, Steven waved to Anakah, who joined him on stage.
There's another announcement I would like to make. Anakah will be the Director of Personnel and Finance of the Klein Group.
This was the last thing that Anakah was expecting. She thought Steven would announce that she'd passed her probation period. Who would have thought that he would appoint her as the Director of Personnel and Finance? She was rising through the ranks way too fast.
Mr. Adams, I'm not qualified to hold such an important position. I'm sure you can do it. If you need any help, Mr. Lucero will assign you an assistant. Work hard. Don't disappoint me.
Steven had so much confidence in her abilities that Anakah could only agree. After a round of applause, Steven made his third announcement.
The Klein Group will be renamed to the Wyvern Group. In half a month, there will be an event to publicly announce our company's changes to the public. Mr. Lucero will take care of all the business dealings. I won't be stepping in unless it's necessary. Please give him your full support.
Steven was the owner of the Klein Group, and he was the one behind the overnight acquisition of the company. Changing the name was normal since he was the new owner, but giving Dennis full authority was equivalent to giving him the entire company. Could it be that Steven didn't think too much of Santa Ana's economic lifeline? How powerful was he really? After making his announcements, Steven left the conference room. Even though Dennis didn't know how to manage a company, Steven had written down a plan for him beforehand. If he followed the plan, the meeting would conclude without a hitch. 2 hours later, the meeting was finally over. Because of Dennis's warning, no one in the company knew about Steven's identity except for the top executives. They were only aware that a mysterious person was supporting Dennis from behind the scenes. The first thing Dennis did when he returned to the CEO's office was stretch. "My back hurts," he muttered. "Fighting on the battlefield is easier than giving a speech while sitting in the same spot for 2 hours." Steven chuckled as he looked up from his phone.
Most people would kill to be in your position.
"Couldn't be me, Mr. Adams. Why didn't you change Klein Group to its original name?"
You mean Felicity Corporation? If I did that, my identity would have been exposed. Besides, you're the CEO, and as far as the public is concerned, this is your company now. Don't you think Wyvern Group suits you more than Felicity Corporation?
Dennis shrugged as he took a seat on the opposite couch. "I don't have an eye for these things." Steven laughed.
How did the investigation on Richard go?
"I did some digging and found Richard's mother. She runs a tofu stall for a living," Dennis replied.
"He was likely framed," Steven said.
"Yes, there's a high possibility. At that time, there was an information broker who specialized in the trade of confidential information. He expended a lot of effort to record the masterminds who plotted against Richard. He originally wanted to sell this info, but the Klein Group rose in power, and everyone was too afraid to go against them. In the end, the case is ruled and buried."
Does this recording still exist?
For someone in his field, there's a high chance that he still has it. While the information he obtained isn't useful in the present, it could come in handy 10 years or maybe even 20 years later. If we get our hands on this recording, we'll know what really happened to Richard back then.
All right, there's no time to lose. Let's go meet with this information broker.
On the surface, the information broker, Payton, was a club owner, but his real business was the buying and selling of confidential information. Since Steven and Dennis didn't have an appointment, Peyton didn't know what kind of information they wanted, but he wouldn't turn anyone away as long as they could afford it.
"You two don't look familiar. You're not from Santa Ana, are you?"
"And if we aren't?" Steven asked. "Don't tell me you only do business with the locals."
"Not really. I welcome anyone who requires my services. As long as you have the money, I won't refuse you," Peyton replied.
"We're the ones who came looking for you, so naturally we won't let you down."
"Great. I like doing business with straightforward people. So tell me, what kind of information are you looking for? If it involves something that has happened in Santa Ana, no matter how secretive it is, I'll have it in stock," Peyton asked.
Steven leaned forward on the counter.
"Then you should know about the Felicity Corporation's bankruptcy 6 years ago, right?"
Peyton was surprised to hear Steven talking about Felicity Corporation. This was the name of Klein Group's predecessor before they merged, and it had only been 2 days since Dennis Lucero took over the Klein Group. Peyton knew everything that was going on in the city, but not this time. He hadn't figured out why Lucas Klein had stepped down so suddenly and handed over his position as CEO to Dennis Lucero. "Are you Mr. Lucero?" Peyton asked suspiciously.
"Who I am is none of your business. I'm only here for the information I need," Steven said.
"Then what do you want to know?"
6 years ago, when Felicity Corporation went bankrupt, Richard, the acting CEO and the director of the technology department, committed suicide by jumping off the building shortly afterward. But I know that this isn't the whole truth. A few members of Felicity Corporation colluded and plotted against Richard, forcing him into a corner and leaving him with no choice but to end his life.
Peyton listened intently. This was something that he did know, and he had a record of this conspiracy. It was useless back then because the Klein Group was too powerful. Everyone was afraid of inciting Lucas's wrath, so no one dared to buy the recording. "Why are you here if you already know everything?"
"Because I don't have evidence. When you caught wind of the conspiracy 6 years ago, you sent someone to eavesdrop and record their schemes. This recording will bring the truth to light," Steven asked.
"So, you're here for this recording? Well, you're right, I do have it. To think that after 6 long years, it's finally going to be of use. But you see, every piece of information has a price," Peyton replied.
"I know your rules. Name your price," Steven said.
Peyton smirked as he held up a hand. Steven thought for a moment.
5,000? That's a little too much, but the recording is useful to me, so I guess it is a reasonable price.
He turned to Dennis.
"Do you happen to have 5,000 in cash?"
Peyton tapped the counter to get their attention. "Wait, I think you've misunderstood me. 5,000 isn't enough to do business with me. If this gets out, my customers will take advantage of our future transactions. The minimum I charge is 50,000.
50,000, huh? That's an acceptable price, too.
Even if Peyton charged 500,000, it would still be worth nothing to Steven. Seeing that Steven was still not enlightened, Peyton decided to be upfront.
"I'm talking about 500 million.
500 million? Dennis repeated in annoyance. "Are you taking us for fools?"
"That's my price. Take it or leave it. If you can't afford it, then I'm sorry."
Peyton pointed at the door.
"The door is over there. Do you want to leave?"
Steven wasn't angry. Instead, he was still smiling.
"We're talking business here. If you're charging 500 million, you should at least tell me why it's so expensive."
"Sure, it's no secret. This recording concerns the Klein Group. Even though Lucas Klein is no longer in the company, he was in control of the city's economy for 6 years. During this time, no one dared to cross him. Giving you this recording will put me at risk, so my offer of 500 million is reasonable. Think of it as my insurance."
"You're not wrong," Steven said. "To me, this recording is worth far more than 500 million, and that amount is just pocket money. It's too bad I don't want to give it to you, though. You see, if I spend 500 million for a recording and this gets out, my reputation will go down the drain. So how about this? I'll give you 50 cents at most."
Peyton narrowed his eyes. "Twisting my words and throwing them back in my face. You're messing with the wrong person. I'll give you 2 choices. 1, take out 500 million for the recording, and I'll pretend I didn't hear what you said just now. 2, kneel before me and apologize. Otherwise, don't even think about leaving unscathed today." Steven took his arms off the counter. A cold smile played on his lips.
"You may know everything in this city, but you're too arrogant for your own good."
"I assume you're choosing neither? Okay, then. I did give you a choice. You're the one who didn't take it." Peyton clapped his hands. At his signal, his men rushed into the club and surrounded Steven and Dennis. Peyton's lackeys were barehanded, but from the looks in their eyes, Steven and Dennis knew that they'd killed before. "I'm sure you've been curious. I run a club to disguise my real business, and with all the information I've sold over the years, how am I still living a comfortable life?" Peyton jerked a thumb towards his bodyguards. "It's because of them. They're skilled mercenaries from around the world.
Each one can hold their own against a fight with 10 people. Even Trent and Sergio wouldn't last against them. Steven knew that Peyton wasn't lying. These mercenaries had fought and lived through the flames of war. Their killing intent couldn't be concealed. Scared yet? The smart thing to do would be to kneel. Perhaps I can consider sparing your lives. Steven grinned. Me? Scared of a group like that? I don't think you know the true meaning of fear. He motioned for Dennis to come closer and whispered, It's been a while since you last had a good workout, right? Now that you mention it, it has indeed been a while. Dennis cracked his knuckles and waved to the bodyguards, gesturing for them to come to him. Dennis's provocative actions angered both Peyton and his bodyguards. All of you, get him! At Peyton's command, the mercenaries rushed at Dennis. To Peyton's surprise, none of them could even get close. Dennis sent them flying across the room with his bare fists. In less than 30 seconds, every single mercenary who had once dominated battlefields abroad lay on the ground, clutching their stomachs in pain. Peyton reached below the counter and pulled out a gun from a drawer. Before Peyton could aim the gun at Dennis, he shot forward like lightning and appeared in front of him. Dennis snatched the pistol from his hand and dismantled it. Then, he dropped the parts back on the table. The entire process only took 20 seconds. Dennis smiled at him as if he hadn't broken a sweat. Are you done? Peyton was frozen in place. Dennis's strength had exceeded his expectations. Even if 100 mercenaries were here, none of them would stand a chance. Peyton raised his hands in surrender. One of the mercenaries on the floor, who had been active on the battlefield for a long time, recognized Dennis. I know him. He's one of the 4 great generals, Dennis Lucero. The 4 great generals were invincible on battlefields across the world. They were a nightmare for mercenaries. Ever since the 4 great generals followed Steven 6 years ago, their prestige flourished as they swept across the land, defeating any foes who threatened to disturb the peace of their country. The mercenary sat up and got on his knees. He apologized to Dennis and asked him to spare his life. When the rest of the mercenaries saw their leader submitting to Dennis, they did the same and apologized. It wasn't just the mercenaries who were afraid. Peyton was also racked with fear. He had heard of the world-renowned 4 great generals. Never in his life would he have imagined one of them to be standing here today. If Dennis was enough to scare his bodyguards into submission, then how strong would the man standing next to him be? He seemed to have a higher status than Dennis. Could he be? A terrifying title popped into Peyton's mind. He stepped out from behind the counter and fell to his knees. Sir, please have mercy. Steven looked on impassively. Bring me that recording. I'll get it right now. Peyton hurried to the back room and fumbled through the boxes to dig out a dusty cassette tape that he had stored for 6 years. He ran back out and held it to Steven with trembling hands. Steven took it and turned to Dennis. Give him the money. Peyton quickly waved his hands. No, it's okay. I'll give it to you for free. Is this how you run your business? You open your doors, but you don't want compensation. How will you support yourself? We're doing business here, so I'll give you what you deserve. I told you 50 cents before, so that's what you'll receive. Dennis had already reached into his pocket. He took out 5 dimes and dropped them into Peyton's hands. Peyton didn't dare refuse. It was only when Steven and Dennis left the club that he leaned heavily against the counter, feeling like their encounter had drained the life out of him. Steven and Dennis returned to the company and inserted the tape into the VCR at the CEO's office. Voices sounded from the TV speakers. That stubborn idiot, Richard. He won't budge no matter what we say. We have to think of a good way to deal with him. Caroline, you're his girlfriend, and he trusts you. Got any good ideas? I know him well. Even if his life is at risk, he'll never sell out Steven. He's so loyal to him that no amount of money can convince him. What should we do then? Richard may be loyal, but he does have his weaknesses. I have an idea. He cares deeply about his mother, so I'll use her to threaten him. He'll definitely give in. I didn't expect you to be so cunning, Caroline. All right, let's do this.
As long as we get that technology, our future in the Klein Group will be secured. Steven pressed the pause button and threw the remote on the table. Anger flashed in his eyes. I didn't think Richard's girlfriend, Caroline, and his closest friend, Frank, were behind his death. If it weren't for this recording, no one would ever know the truth. I won't let them get away with this. Dennis, find out where they are now. From the recording, Caroline and Frank had devised this scheme to solidify their positions at the Klein Group, but Steven hadn't seen them during the meeting with the upper management staff. Dennis left the room to investigate Caroline and Frank. As one of the 4 great generals, it wasn't difficult for him to find them. Soon, he returned. Did you find anything? Steven asked. Who would have thought? The world is really small. Mr. Adams, do you remember how after you acquired the Klein Group, there were a few people who rushed to come here and negotiate business with us?
Of course, they were from Star Media. The news hadn't been released to the public yet, but they somehow found out through their connections and came to see us. Their boss probably isn't your typical CEO.
A thought crossed Steven's mind.
Wait, are you implying that...
Dennis chuckled. It's exactly what you're thinking. The current CEO of Star Media is Caroline, and Frank is the owner.
No wonder. Everyone who followed me back then was charismatic and had a good business sense. While most would get a better grasp on the situation before making a decision, my people would have already taken the opportunity. I wonder how Caroline and Frank would react when they found out that I'm the owner of Wyvern Group.
What's our next move? Dennis asked.
I'll be visiting them, of course. 6 years ago, they forced Richard to jump off a building, and after his death, he was ridiculed by the public for a crime he didn't commit. They should take responsibility for what they've done.
Understood, Dennis said. He made an appointment with Caroline, and the 2 of them headed out. Star Media was also located at the center of the city. It wasn't far from the Wyvern Group. As Steven and Dennis entered the building and walked across the lobby, they noticed a conspicuous poster of Caroline pasted on the wall. It included a short biography of her life before she became a successful businesswoman. Besides the huge poster, there were also various awards that Caroline had received, displayed in the hall on the first floor. Steven scoffed as he stared at the large poster on the wall. Caroline had only gotten to this position by using Richard as a tool. Dennis went to the front desk and spoke to the receptionist. Hello, I have an appointment with Miss Caroline. The receptionist made a call to confirm before standing up. Please follow me. She led Steven and Dennis to Caroline's office on the 18th floor. The receptionist knocked on the door and announced their arrival. Caroline's voice came from inside the office. Let them in. Steven and Dennis walked into the office and saw Caroline sorting through the documents on her desk. Without lifting her head, she told them to have a seat. Steven leaned against the wall.
Hey, Caroline. Now that you're the CEO, you're putting on airs.
Caroline whirled around at the familiar voice. Steven was standing beside the door with an unfamiliar man next to him. What are you doing here? Weren't you? Steven smiled.
No, I'm not dead, but I bet you and Frank hoped that I was. Am I right?
A voice sounded from another room in the office. Caroline, is there a guest? A man came out, strapping on his belt and suppressing a yawn. It appeared that he had just woken up. Frank turned towards the door, and his eyes widened in shock. Steven, is that you? Steven looked at Frank and then back at Caroline.
Seems like you two already live together.
Frank's expression hardened as he spoke with a tone that he reserved for his clients. That's none of your business. Why are you here?
Official and personal reasons, Steven said.
If it's official business when you suddenly disappeared without a trace 6 years ago, your Felicity Corporation merged with the Klein Group and was left with no leader. That had nothing to do with us. Without waiting for Steven's reply, Frank continued. As for personal matters, Richard has been dead for 6 years, and longing for a dead man is useless. Caroline and I fell in love with each other. There's nothing wrong with living together. Steven waved his hand dismissively.
I already know that Felicity Corporation's sudden collapse had nothing to do with you two, but I'm here for something else. The day after my company merged with the Klein Group, Richard committed suicide by jumping off the building.
Steven, why are you bringing this up? The authorities already determined that he made that choice because his embezzlement of public funds was exposed. He felt guilty, and he didn't want to implicate his family.
That is what the reports say, but there's another version.
Frank tensed. Did Steven know what he and Caroline did to Richard all those years ago? What nonsense are you talking about?
I'll let you two see for yourselves.
Steven took out his phone and played the recording that he'd made a copy of earlier. The same conversation between Caroline and Frank sounded in the office. Even though this recording was created many years ago, and the tape had been left in a dusty storage room all this time, the sound quality was clear and audible. Frank and Caroline's stoic expressions faltered. It had been 6 long years since they'd plotted against Richard, but everything they had said was recorded as if it had just happened yesterday.
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.